Hello. Today's story is Mr. Blewitt's Nose. It's written and illustrated by Alistair Taylor. Mr. Blewitt's Nose, featuring Primrose Pumpkin, her helpful nature, and her incredibly smelly dog, Dirk. Primrose Pumpkin had a helpful nature and an outrageously smelly dog, Dirk. Primrose Pumpkin was so used to Dirk's remarkable stinkiness that she could quite happily take him for walks and hardly notice it. Other people, though, would cross to the other side of the street as they approached to get away from that dreadful smell. The sidewalk was never crowded when Primrose Pumpkin took her alarmingly smelly dog, Dirk, for a walk. It was on one such walk that she noticed something very unusual, something you rarely see on an average street in a normal town on a humdrum sort of day. At least, not on its own. It was a nose. It was perched on the end of a park bench as if someone had removed it for a moment and then forgotten and gone off without it. No one else seemed to have noticed it, and as was likely to as long as Primrose Pumpkin's astoundingly smelly dog Dirk was anywhere near. Primrose Pumpkin concluded that if there was a nose without a person attached, then it followed that somewhere there was a person without a nose attached. And as she had a helpful nature, she decided to find that person. Excuse me, have you lost a... No, I can see you haven't. Whew, what's that smell? Anybody lost a nose? Looks like they all got theirs. Primrose Pumpkin soon realized that there wasn't much point in asking people who absolutely had noses whether they had lost theirs. It was more a case of asking if they might know of anyone who could possibly have lost a nose. But this took just a little longer to ask, longer than most people could put up with the odor emanating from her sensationally smelly dog, Dirk. Primrose Pumpkin was beginning to wonder if it was worth all the trouble. But her helpful nature prevailed, and she tried a new way of advertising the problem. If you've lost your nose, it's here. And sure enough, okay, this is the closest I get, that their nose will belong to Mr. Blewitt. He's always leaving it around the place. About this time, he'll be going to watch the game. Always wears a red shirt. Right, it's getting stinky. I'm off. Excuse me, which way to the game? She hadn't gone far in the direction pointed when she spotted in the distance a man in a red shirt. She hurried after him, dragging her inconceivably smelly dog Dirk behind her. But as she rounded a corner, Primrose Pumpkin crashed into another man in a red shirt, a man obviously in full possession of his nose. He started to help her up, but soon thought better of it. Sorry, love. You'll be fine. Phew. By now, there were dozens, maybe even hundreds of people in red shirts, all heading in the same direction. Primrose Pumpkin asked a woman with a bad cold what was going on. There's a game on today at the stadium. Red's the home team's color. And even she could detect a bit of a nasty whiff. Still, not knowing how she was going to spot Mr. Blewitt among the mass of red-shirted people, Primrose Pumpkin joined the crowd going into the stadium. She didn't even have to pay, as the ticket man turned a very odd color and fell off his stool as she and the outlandishingly smelly dog Dirk approached. Her distressingly smelly dog Dirk was already creating his customary no-go area, and this gave Primrose Pumpkin a brilliant idea. Someone had abandoned a large cup of water in his haste to avoid the stink. She poured it over her devastatingly smelly dog, Dirk. Sorry about this. If Dirk was smelly when he was dry, there was no words to describe how smelly he was when wet. Even Primrose Pumpkin herself felt a little queasy, and she was used to him. To almost everyone else in the stadium, there was only one thing to do, and they all did it. They're all leaving. In minutes, the stadium was empty except for Primrose Pumpkin, her eye-wateringly smelly dog Dirk, and Mr. Blewitt, way down front. Mr. Blewitt was having a perplexing day. First he had gone and mislaid his nose somehow, and then he couldn't understand why as soon as he arrived at the stadium to watch the game, everyone else left. And now here was a little girl he had never seen before with an unsavory-looking dog in tow, addressing him by name. Mr. Blewitt! Mr. Blewitt replaced his nose, and as you might expect, it fit him perfectly. He was delighted. Oh, you really are a kind and helpful girl. I don't know how to thank. Blimey! And off he runs, too. The next morning, Primrose Pumpkin received a bunch of sweet-scented flowers and an invitation to tea with Mr. Blewitt. There was no mention on the invitation card of Dirk. That was the story of Mr. Blewitt's nose.